Sorry about that. I had two meeting invites. I was in a separate meeting.
Yeah, you know what? I was waiting in the wrong one. You were waiting in the right one, probably. So yeah, sorry about that. When they set everything up, it went to Google Meet, and I'm like, who uses Google Meet? I don't. But so I'm so excited to be here with you, woman.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, so we'll just jump right in. So why don't you start off by sharing a little bit about how you found yourself on this journey, woman?
So, right, we're currently about what, 7 years in, 7.5 years in. So, yeah, I'm a hardcore. I've come to the conclusion.
I know you got mad respect to you, woman.
So I met my husband Ian when I was mid-30s. We didn't get married till we were 37, and everything should have been brilliant, except that I moved in with him and then took a dislike to where I'd moved to, and ended up with. I'm not a country girl. I'm a bit of a big city girl, and we lived a bit too far out for my liking. And but Ian said, you know what, I'm not wedded to this place. We can move, but let's get married. And I was like, all right then. So, and it came about because I was talking to him, and I said, you know, I'd started to think about what it would be like if we had a family, and this environment doesn't work for me. And he's like, see your point, right, let's move. So we got married, we moved house, and then at that point work started to be really, really stressful, to the point that, you know, it comes to something when your husband says, when you're working for the same company and your husband says you should get a new job. And I was like, right, okay then. And I happened to be, luckily enough, I was headhunted by somebody else. So I moved job. So I'd taken the anxiety away from not liking where I lived, and the anxiety of a massive commute, taking away the anxiety of, you know, we'd got past the whole moving house stuff, and taking away the anxiety of a really stressful job. And we're like, right, okay, this is a good time to start. And I just hadn't. While at this point, I was probably about 39 at this point, but I was pretty fit and healthy. I was going to the gym like 4 or 5 times a week. I like the odd tipple, but generally looked after myself. And I kind of made the assumption that because when I was younger, I went on the pill because I was having periods like every 2 weeks. And I was thinking, well, must have been really fertile then. So surely it stops and it comes back, and just didn't kind of think about it. So I came off the pill and didn't have a period for 3 months. I thought, well, that's not completely unusual, but they tell you to go to the doctor. So I went to the doctor, and he's right, yeah, let's do some blood tests. So I spent the next 2 or 3 months having monthly blood tests at the right time at various times, so they could test it out. And he's like, don't think you're ovulating. You better go and see a gynecologist. So happy 40th birthday to me. I went to see a gynecologist. She's not one of the best ways to spend your birthday, but hey. And he sort of said, well, try some Clomid for 5 months. Okay, then off we go. That didn't work. And then he said, right, your only option is, he says, we reckon that, you know, given your age, the only option is IVF. And I was a bit like, right, okay then. And I had previously said to Ian, I would rather not, if it comes that we struggle to have kids, I would rather adopt than do IVF. However, when faced with someone telling me that, I basically took it on there. Don't tell me I can't do this. I'm going to give it a go then. So it's kind of like, right, challenge accepted. But because of my age, like, you can't have NHS. So in the UK, if you're a certain age, you get free. You get at least a round free on the NHS. But I was too old. And he said the bonus is you can go and pick wherever you want. I was like, brilliant. So we went and had a look, And I actually found a clinic literally right next door to my office, where I quite liked their approach. It was naturally focused. They didn't believe in lots of meds. I was like, right, if I'm going to try this, I'm going to do it this way. And it means I can squeeze it in and out of work and nobody's going to know. So we tried with them, and, you know, they, as I think every clinic does, they're like, do you want the special offer of 3 for a discount, 3 rounds for a discount? And we're like, no, one will be fine. We'll just do one, be fine. And the first round actually went fairly well, apart from the fact that I did have I'd have a minor meltdown when, for my last injection, the mixer needle got stuck on the syringe, and I had to inject myself with a mixer needle, not a dosage needle, which, if anyone has to go through that, it is not fun.
It's like a spear compared to, wow.
Yeah. So initially I was like, this is the first round. I'm like, I'm not doing this again. I kind of, at that point, I was like, no, just not doing it again. I'm not doing it again. I mean, to be fair, Ian had said to me, do you want me to do that injection? And I hovered for a moment. I was like, no, I'm going to be master of my own pain, not to mention the fact I think you'll struggle. And he's like, I'm glad you said that. So I did it, but I was like, you better get some chocolate find some chocolate from somewhere. I want something. So we did it. We did the first collection, and we actually got 12 eggs. And I was like, yay, this is good. 8 of them fertilized. And at the end of it, at the 5 days, we had 3, which they said was pretty good. You know, it's about average, and they were all pretty good quality. And we're like, brilliant, let's get to it. And all 3 transfers failed. And the problem that I started with and have had throughout is that, having gone from having really heavy periods to the point of being slightly anemic, my lining was really thin. So one extreme to the other, and in brains, like, does not compute. And but they were like, no, it's fine. Well, let's give it another go. Your eggs were good. We'll just do a couple more tests. So at this point, we had a few more blood tests. I had a hysteroscopy done to check that my lining was okay. I had an ERA test done to check receptivity. I was like, right, what else can I have tested? Let's just test. Let's do everything. I don't care. I was like, I'm really lucky in that Ian and I are in a really good position that we're financially stable, and this wasn't a problem for us. Although it's a bit of a downer when you spend your bonus on a hysteroscopy, but anyway. I did have enough for a pair of shoes. I did have enough left for a good pair of shoes, so it wasn't all bad. But we did the few tests, and we discovered that I've also got sticky blood, which means that I take kind of an anticoagulant as well when I'm doing the treatments. So it's like, well, right, we found something. That's fixed. So we did another collection round, and that went fine. There was no issues with injections. I asked for a lot of spares just to be sure. That time we got 8 eggs, and 5 of them fertilized, and we ended up with 3 again. So we're still in a good position. But we put 2. We had 2 separate transfers, but in amongst all of this, I had quite a few cancelled rounds where my lining wasn't either the right, wasn't getting up to a decent enough level, or I started to have fluid pockets, which you can't have. So we had a few kind of disappointing rounds. We did a few test rounds where we tried me on various different meds to see if it would work or not. And I think we got to a point that we felt like that clinic was trying the same thing over and over again. And I was like, this is just not working for me. So at this point, we had 1 Frosty left. And one of the doctors that I'd been seeing had moved to a different clinic. And I was like, let's see what they've got to say. And my acupuncturist had also said, look, a few of the women that she'd seen had had a natural killer cells test, which basically checks whether if you're putting something into your body, whether your body's going to start fighting it, which is brilliant if you've got the likes of, COVID and a cold, but not when you're trying to get pregnant.
Right.
However, the first clinic didn't believe in this test. So it was kind of like, I was like, right, okay, then if you're not playing my game, I'm away. So we moved clinic. So we went to the clinic where I was back with the other doctor, which was good because she's like, I know your history and I know what we've already done. Here's the things that I can now tell you we can have a go at. And she's like, right, let's try this different method first. So we did a first round with them with a different method with the whole dam regulation stuff, which I hadn't done before. And we'd also decided we would have the embryos tested this time. Unfortunately, after taking way more meds than I've ever had before, we only got one embryo out of it, and that embryo wasn't viable. And the kicker in the teeth was, that's the only time that I've had a really, really thick lining. So you kind of like, ugh. But yeah, so we gave that a go first. And this is the beginning of the year where the pandemic hit. So we come up with another plan, and the doctor says, right, there are a couple of other tests that we could have done. And one of them being the natural killer cell test. I was like, yes, I've heard stories of quite a few women having this. Let's get it done. And we just agreed to do this, and that was when the announcement came out. There's a coronavirus pandemic. Everybody needs to go home and stay home. Maybe in May, when everybody else went home early that evening, I went to the gym, fit in my last gym session, and then squeezed in the blood tests the next morning. So literally the Tuesday morning, London lockdown on the Wednesday, Tuesday morning, I'm at the doctor's having my blood test done and getting the other two tests done. And both of them came back with something positive to deal with. So I did have a slightly elevated level of natural killer cells. So they're like, right, when we do the next one, we're going to give you intralipids. But at this point, I had an enforced break because everything shut down. So we had an enforced break, and I was like, well, let's just think positively. It might happen. It might just happen. Let's just chill out, do what we want to do. It might happen. Come August, we were back at the clinic and tried another round. And this time we decided we're not going to bother with the test, and let's just go ahead. If we get one, we get one. Let's just do it. So we had another round, and we got one, and we put that back, and that didn't work. So we tried another round, didn't get any. And then we had another round, and we got two, and the doctor said, let's just put both of them back. And I was like, right, okay then. So we put both of them back, and that didn't work. So this was all happening with the intralipids and everything. We had one frosty left, and we're like, right, let's just try and ramp up everything we've done before. Let's try everything else. Let's just see what will work, and let's go for it. So we went for it, and it didn't work. And at this point, I was like, right, I've done my homework. What about donor? What about a donor egg? I was like, after all, I'd said adoption at the beginning. It's kind of the same thing, and I don't have a problem. And the one thing that was good with meaning was I'd said to him, the thing you get to do when you're in lockdown, and the only thing you can do is go for a walk, is have conversations. So we used kind of those days to have conversations about what was on and off the table. And I was lucky that Ian in that front was like, look, I know that this is all mainly you. So whatever you're comfortable with, if you want to try it, we'll try it. And I was like, well, how do you feel about a donor egg? And he's like, nothing is off the table. If you want to try this, you can try it. If you're open to it, we can give it a go. And I was like, right, okay then. So I went back to the clinic, and we had the kind of the final consultation. And they're like, we don't do donor. So then we had to find another clinic. Fortunately, a friend of ours had also had a donor egg and had used another clinic. I did interview a couple of other doctors though, but we went to this clinic, and again they were like, "Tell you what, we've got different drugs. Do you want to give the different drugs a try?" And I'm like, "Well, I might as well tick them all off the list." So I'm pretty sure I've had virtually every drug there is, as far as I'm concerned, to do with fertility. Some of them are pretty good, and some of them are not so good. But so we gave that a go. It didn't work, and he said, "Right, there is something that I think you could be interested in. We can't recommend it because it's not licensed in the UK. However, our Spanish clinic is running a research project on PRP, which is plasma-rich platelets. I can put you in touch with the doctor in Spain." And as we'd said, nothing's off the table. Fine, let's have a conversation. So we had a conversation with the doctor in Spain, who was very nice, was really good, explained all of the things to us. And I was like, well, it's basically having like a hysteroscopy again, because actually I'd had a second hysteroscopy by this point, because the doctor at the third clinic had said, "Let's just check. You've been through a lot. Let's just check." So we had a chat with the guy in Spain. He explained everything. There were two different options. There was kind of one option that you could do, which was over the course of quite a few days, but I stay awake. Or there was a 1-day option where they knock me out. And they were a bit concerned. They're like, it is like surgery. I was like, mate, I've had umpteen collections. You can knock me out as much as you want. It's not a problem. I love a bit of sedation. It's the highlight of the process. I get to have a power nap. It's brilliant.
That's so true.
You look for the one thing I learned, you take your highs where you can get them. You take your positives wherever you can get them.
Absolutely.
And that was mine. I loved a power nap. So yes, we went to Spain, and I had the procedure done. And then we came back to London, and we tried to get Milan, and Milan didn't quite go up the first time, but they said, it can take a couple of goes before it actually kicks in. It's like, right, okay. So like, we've got an idea. Since you seem like you're pretty much open to everything, why don't we try it with Viagra? And I was like, okay. And they're like, no, it doesn't work like that. And for anyone who's had it, it doesn't work like that. I thought I was going to have another high, but no, when you're on the fertility dose, it basically just gives you headaches, which is a pain. But you're only on it for a few days. Well, I was in Europe for a few days. And but just before we started this round, I got COVID again. So yeah, it's kind of one of those moments when I didn't feel ill. I had maybe a slightly dry throat, and the only reason I did a test was because I was going to my cousin's wedding in like a week's time, and I just wanted to be sure. So I did the test, and a little red line popped up, and I was like, in my head, I was like, it's all right though. I'll be done in 7 days. It'll be gone by the time I need the first scan. We can crack on. Obviously, the clinic like, no, that's not how it works, Claire. It affects your bloods, it affects your body. You need to take the month off. So not only did I have COVID that month, I followed that up with a completely stinking cold. So I spent the whole month being ill, shook everything off, started on the meds. They gave me, had the Viagra, started all the other stuff. And the day and had the scan, and they booked me in. I was supposed to have the transfer done on the 25th of April. Had the scan they did the week before, and they're like, no, you're too far away. But you are close enough that will push you another week. I was like, right, okay then. And on the plus side, I'm thinking, right, that pushes me back a week, which means I save a day's holiday because it's bank holiday Monday. So don't need to take time off because because that's all sorted. And a week, the day I should have had the transfer, I went in for the scan, and the doctor who's doing it, he's a newer doctor, and he was quite young, and I was sitting there thinking, I'm sure I've been having treatment longer than you've been given it. I'm gonna keep my mouth shut though. And he sort of did it, and he was like, okay, so Ronnie, like, so 5.7. I was like, oh, that's a no, isn't it? And he's like, yeah, because we need it to be 7. I was like, I'm just going to stop you there. We don't need 7. We look for 6. If you read me notes, you'll find that this is the problem. We made the decision a long time ago. Once we get to 6, the lining is perfect. It's just that thin. That's just me. That's just my body. We're looking for 6. He's like, right, okay then. And suddenly find 6.5. I was like, and that, my friend, is a goal. So yeah, so it was all spearhead. We made all the arrangements because we had the donor done in Spain. Made the arrangements, flew out, had the transfer done, came home, and I was a bit like, right, it's the waiting game. I've been here before, so I had my 2-week wait diary, which I'd been doing before, filling it all in, and just kind of cracked on. Just fortunately, I was lucky that work was quite busy, so I ended up working late, but not being stressed. It kept me busy. I was quite happy about that. And then, what was it? About 8 days later, I had an implantation bleed. So I had the discharge. I spotted the discharge, and I said to him, he's like, I've got discharge. And he's like, oh, no. And I was like, no. This is a good thing. He's like, are you sure? I was like, yes, I've read everything. I've read everything 5 times over. This is a good thing, and we've never had it before. He's like, right, okay then. So my pregnancy test was on Friday the 13th, which some people might find horrific. I love a horror film. Friday the 13th, I'm all over it. So my mates were just like, it's standard. So well, my transfer was done on my cousin's birthday, which I predicted when they were born. And then it was Friday the 13th, and I love a good horror film. So they're like, it kind of lines up. Things just started to line up in a row. And typically being, your type A control freak, was not going to wait until the blood test result. I did the P-stick test straight away on the morning. So I do it on the morning, do the test, clean my teeth while I'm waiting for it to work, and pick it up. And my friend said, I'm the only person she knows who's ever compared a pregnancy test to a COVID test. But it was exactly the same experience when you think, it's potential. I know that there's a chance, but nah. And it was kind of like well, shit. There's a line. So I literally opened the bedroom door, and I said, he's like, there's a line. He's like, what does that mean? I was like, there's a pregnant line. He's like, well, hold on. Wait till you have the blood test. It's like, you do know the blood test is more sensitive than the P-stick. That's why they do a blood test. And he's like, so let's just wait. So obviously I had the blood test. The blood test came back positive. I missed the call from the doctor, who then sent me an email that's got, and I've still kept it because it's quite funny. Put it in very big caps and lots of exclamation marks. You are pregnant, which was really funny. So then I had to phone them, and I think I disappointed them by saying, yeah, I know I did the test. I'm sorry to steal your thunder. So then we spent the next few weeks in shock. I was like, wow, it was positive. There's a baby. And then we had the 5-week scan. I think that was the point where I was like, well, one it's 5 weeks ago, you're 8 weeks pregnant. I was like, hold on, you put it back 5 weeks ago. They don't, nobody bothers to tell you. This is the bit that my friends never thought to bother update of actually, they count it from the first day of your period. And but in my case, minus in the extra week. So that's all a bit complicated. But yeah, wasn't actually expecting to see an actual baby shape. I think we were expecting it was just going to be a little blob. So we both sat like, And yeah, it was funny if it was the doctor who did me scan was the doctor who almost said no. So yeah. So after having tried many different rounds and having lots of tears and a few meltdowns, we are finally pregnant.
Wow, Claire. I mean, it just, and I'm trying to like put all of, I mean, you went from I'm open to everything, you know, let's try all of these things, to also taking a leap to do the PRP and being willing to, like, you know, you're so committed, and look at it, paid off. It totally paid off. And so so to make sure that I'm tracking this, so you did the PRP in Spain. Did you do the donor cycle, or was this with your own egg?
So we did a donor cycle in Spain. So when we went out for the PRP, Ian did his bit while he was there. Yes. The donor was already lined up. So that was already ready. So I did the PRP, flew home, and then a couple of days later they were like, right, we've got your 4 embryos just waiting. I was like, right, okay then. Although typically in my head I was like, is that all? I mean, I did 3 myself. And at this point, Ian had to kind of like talk me, well, he's like, Claire, we've read the statistics. This is normal. I was like, I know, but I was just saying.
I mean, look at how beautiful this story is, and the power of keeping your heart open. Because Claire, I mean, you could have, you know, from the get-go, you could have made this, you know, all about you and like some ego story that, you know, I'm only willing to do this, or I'm only willing to do that, but your heart was open.
Yeah, I was like, if we can do it, we try it. I mean, I think we moved clinics twice because they weren't as open to doing things as we were. It's like, I need someone who is on my side completely and who is open to trying anything, because I will try anything. Like, you need to tell me, it's like, you tell me no, and I'm going to say why. You know, you find me something else to do. I'll tell you when the answer's no. I'll tell you when I'm done. And to be honest, I think when we decided to do the donor round, I said to Ian, this is it. I've had enough now. I have been through enough. My body has been through enough. Because the last clinic had said, we'll do one more, given your age, we'll do one more collection if you want. And I was like, look, I've been there, I've done that. It ain't fun. I've had enough. I want to try this. And that was when they said, actually, we can't do that. So we moved on. And I've literally been at the point where the clinics say, we're not going to support you being open to try stuff. I'm like, see ya. No, it's not acceptable.
Yeah, well, and I think I love the point that you're making, is that you were committed to doing whatever it took to get to this place, and you never lost sight of your own license and agency in this whole process. You weren't going to be bullied into doing anything. You were following your heart.
I mean, I did have a point. So the point at which I found you, which was probably, where were we at? It was actually the February before, the beginning of the year before lockdown, when I'd been through quite a few and we'd had that round and nothing had come of it. At that point, I full on hit rock bottom. And I mean, at that point, I hated Ian. I hated everyone. And I actually got to the point, I was like, right, I'm going to quit work. I'm going to pack a suitcase. I'm going to leave. I'm either going to move to a beach in Thailand, or I'm going to go and join a yoga commune in Ibiza. Everyone can go and do one. I do not care. I'm going to cut off everyone. I'm not taking my phone. I'll probably email me mum, because otherwise she'll kill me. But other than that, I don't care. I've had enough. I have full on had enough. And I think that was the point where Ian was a little bit worried, because he'd struggled I think he struggled with some of this and to understand some of this, and we'd struggled to communicate. And at that point, I think at that point I was just like, I've had it with you, I've had it with everyone, I'm done. And at that point, Facebook chose to throw me up an advert for your book, and I kind of read the answer. I read the title and I was like, oh, what's that? No, because I've already had one doctor tell me it's all my fault, and I told him where he could go. And there was one doctor which he is lucky I did not punch him, because at this point I was very much a test everything, and that means both of us. There are two of us in this.
Right.
It's both of us. And this doctor actually turned around and said, well, I don't really see the point, because 99% of the time it's the woman. And I think Ian could see at this point, Ian got hold of my hand because he could see my knuckles had turned white.
Started
like, he grabbed the hand that I would have punched him with. So he's lucky he was on the right side.
Ian's a good man.
Yeah, he's seen me get a bit angry. So he kind of knew where I was coming from. I was very calm, and I just said, I choose to disagree with you on that point. I think there were two of us. I said, but let's come up with a plan for this. And I came out of that appointment, and they're like, do you want another appointment with him next week? I was like, I don't ever want to see him again. You give me an appointment with the other doctor. Don't want to see him again. And I think he probably wasn't the only person that wasn't the only person he'd upset, because they kind of just went, right, okay then. So by that point, having had like a few things, and I kind of probably hit the bottom, but I saw your book and I was like, you know what? I've read websites. Let's give it a go. I said I'd be open to stuff, so let's give it a go. So I bought your book. I read the introductory chapter, and I was like, did I write this? This is like this woman is properly in my head. It's like, I could have written this myself. This is me. So I kept going through the book, and I read through the book first, and then I went back and I did through some of the exercises. And my acupuncturist said to me, so she'd seen me the week before, and she was into Chinese herbal medicines. I laughed at the black chicken. I didn't go that far, but she did give me some very large bags of Chinese herbs, which basically made me sick. And I was like, no, let's not do that again. I was like, at that point I was thinking the chicken, I think, would have been better. So she said she could see me kind of going down. And after I read your book, and she said, what's changed? You are not the Claire that I saw a few weeks ago. Something's happened. And I was like, I found this book. It's awesome. This woman's in your head. And she's like, whatever it is, just do it. It's working for you. She's like, you've completely changed your outlook. And so yeah, and I think that was the turning point for me. And when we got into lockdown, I was like, I don't like that I'm not doing anything. So actually, what can I do? And that was the point where I gave you a call, and I was like, right, now let's use the downtime to get the head really in gear, because God knows what's coming on the other side. It could be more of the same. It could be better. We don't know. So that was when I joined your coaching, and it was nice to be part of that group. And I think at that point I did just need a kick up the ass.
And you got a right kick up the ass.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I asked for it. I full on asked for it. And because I remember kind of sitting there. It's like, just started off, and I know there was, me and many of the women shared the same frustration that our husbands didn't necessarily understand and couldn't deal with it, and we weren't communicating. And I remember sitting there going, right then, rah, 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 husband this, husband that, rah, 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 rah. And you going, you done? I'm like, yeah, yes, that's where I'm at. That's what I need to solve. And you said, I'm going to say this because I love you. You're full of bullshit. It's like, right there. I was like, well, yeah, I see your point. And I remember that you set me a task of, I had been keeping I'd started to keep a gratitude diary, but you said, right, you've got like 48 hours to give me 100 things that you're grateful for. It took me 30 minutes. I couldn't believe how quickly I managed to write that many things down. And I felt a little bit smug when I was like, look, I got my homework in early. But it's the one thing I have kept up. I've kept up the gratitude diary because it is the one thing that came out of the coaching was as well, one, acknowledging Ian's struggle, but also acknowledging what he was doing. So my brain was totally focused on, he's not doing this, he's not doing this, he's not doing this. And I completely ignored everything he was doing. To the point that, in one of the sessions, a few of us had conversations like this, and I came out of that session and I went to him and he's like, so how was it then? I was like, I'm sorry. I was like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the way that I've been. I'm sorry for not acknowledging what you have actually been doing. And I think I pretty much floored him. I was like, I've spent so much time complaining to you about the things that you haven't done. I haven't acknowledged the things that you have done and where you have supported me. So I'm sorry. So let's, I'm going to try and be better at this. So we used that as a bit of a springboard, but I mean, it wasn't plain sailing, and we still had ups and downs. And I remember listening to one of your podcasts and fairly recently, and I remember, I think it came up in one of the sessions. We said, challenge partner just asked, do you really want this? And I think that's at the point where I was that brutally honest and that vulnerable. Well, that was the point where he really, really kind of acknowledged she is struggling. And that was the point where he said, I kind of don't know how to deal with you not dealing with stuff. You are one of the strongest people I know. You just get on with it. So when you say you don't know how to cope, I kind of don't know how to do. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do it. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And I was like, well, to be honest, sometimes I don't know what. I can't tell you to do something specific. Sometimes you just need to be there and to listen and just give me a hug. I was like, sometimes I just need to get it out. And sometimes you just need to take that sudden supplement and not argue. And he's like, right, okay then. But it is that it's been a very eye-opening process discovering our strengths and weaknesses and our vulnerabilities, and being able to actually acknowledge the vulnerabilities. That was quite difficult for both of us, because he wants to be the man and the husband and support, and is suddenly like, what the hell do I do?
Right.
And I'm like, I don't even have an answer for you. And he's like, why are you crumbling? You're the strong one. And I'm like, I don't know. It's annoying to me too. So it kind of being able to just be open, the reminder to just be open with each other as opposed to screaming your head off, was kind of the point where it made me step back. And I think had I not at least read your book, I think things could have gone downhill very, very quickly. I mean, I was ready to pack a bag. Yeah, I was ready to go. I just had enough.
I hear that a lot, Claire. I hear that a lot from women, that this book and this program come into women's lives like exactly when they need it. And the timing is incredible. So what would you say? Because look, you had been through a lot up until that point. What role did mindset play in this next phase for you? Like being open to going to Spain and doing the things that you did and showing up the way that you have. Like, what role do you think mindset played in all that?
I think it's really, for me, it was actually learning to be, not even learning to be positive, learning to ignore the negative. So one of the things that I ended up having a conversation with him, so after I'd read one of the things when I sent out a walk, my husband is an actuary, he loves statistics, and he does all the research. But he started to throw things at me that I felt weren't helpful. And I actually, at that point, I turned around and said, look, if it doesn't help me, I'm not interested. If it's not positive, don't want to know. Because it's either negative, in which case it makes me feel worse, or it's irrelevant and it's just taking up space. So only tell me something if you think it's going to help or it's something I need to think about. And he's like, okay, I understand that. It's like, so that's the way we focus on all of the information we are given. Which part of it is going to help us? Because if it's not, let's ignore it. And that's the way we took every step at that point. It was like, what information are they giving us? And that was one of the other things that really resonated with me that I've shared with friends, and they've like, actually, that's an awesome idea. That anybody's opinion is just information. It's what you do with it that matters. You just take it on board. So we'd sit down whenever anybody said anything to us, and we're like, do we accept it? Does it work for us? No. Fine. Bin it. Move on. So which is why we end up moving clinics. So like, do we agree with their process? Is it helping us? No. Right. Thanks, but we're off. And that was one thing. If only look at it, only look for the positive things. What's going to help? What is going to help? How are we going to, what's going to be the best thing? What's going to maximize our chances? What's going to be the most successful thing? Because the doctor in Spain had said, if you go and donor, do you want to try that without the PRP? Because it there's a good chance. And we were just like, no, we're just going to do everything. We are maximizing. Like this is the last kind of goal. Whatever that we got 4 embryos, whatever it is, however embryos we would have had at the time. We want to maximize our chances. So we want to do both. And he was like, all right then. So he was like, he gave us his opinion, but was right behind. He's like, if you want to do both, I'm behind you, and we'll do whatever you want to do. So it was a case of what's gonna work. So the doctor in London in the 3rd clinic, we'd said, nothing's off the table. Nothing is off the table. We're looking at donor. What can you do? What do you recommend? And they were like, right, okay, here you go. So they gave us everything we needed to know about donor, about the processes. They thought about it, and actually London and Bilbao, where I had the PRP, they worked together to come up with a plan. Because when the initial PRP didn't quite kick in, I'd said, oh, does that mean we need to go for the long haul one and try it different? Because there are 2 different methods of doing it. Do we now need to try the other one? And they're like, no, hang on. We're going to give you a break because it's quite a big thing. Why don't we try this instead first, in between? If this doesn't work, you can try it the other way. But we don't want to put you through something massive when we think there's something else you can try. And I was like, I like this. I like you're bringing me ideas, you're bringing me solutions, and not telling me no. So yes, that's what we talked. We were just like, right, where are the positives? What are you telling me that is going to work for me? Because anything else is just rubbish.
I think that's such an important point, Claire, is that, you and Ian were really clear, not only about what you wanted, but what you were open to. And you started taking this information that came in and said, is this right for us? Rather than just immediately saying, well, the white coats are saying this, or the white coats are saying that, and not maintaining your position of direction and power in this process. Like, that's really extraordinary. And that's definitely, sometimes people hear, oh, well, this isn't going to work or that isn't going to work, and they just accept it. But you had the inner strength and the resilience to say, you know what? I need to decide if this is right for me. I need to decide if I accept that. I mean, that's extraordinary. So how far along are you now?
So I am 20 weeks now.
Wow. So what are some things that you would want the women listening to know? Like, remember back to when you first found my book or first were listening to the podcast, like, what would you want these women listening who maybe don't feel as powerful, or maybe, you know, are not as open, but maybe want to be? Like, what would you want them to know?
I think I've always been the kind of person who's like, look, I'll give anything a bash once. And actually, I remember saying a friend of mine was thinking about starting IVF, and she's about my age now. And she was asking about the donor, and I said to her, I said, well, there's a good chance they'll mention it to you. And she's like, I don't think I could do that. And I was like, I'm going to ask you a question. What's more important? Do you want a baby, or do you want a baby that's 100% genetically you? And she's like, I want a baby. And I was like, well, there's the answer. I said, the question is, what do you want? What do you want? And how are you going to get it? We do this at work every day. And I was like, I kind of just applied the same mindset. It's like, if I'm focused on what I want to achieve at work and what I want to get, and I look at the options, and I look at the chances of, what's going to help me achieve this more. And they're the things I'm going to pursue. I'm not going to get bogged down with the things that are just going to get in the way. And I think you've just got to focus on, as difficult as it is. And I believe me, we have been at points where my meltdowns were pretty much like The Exorcist. Like the full on things, stuff flying everywhere. It was not pretty. But at the end of it, I think sometimes you do need to let it out. But ultimately, the end, you're like, right, what step do I take next? And it's all about what's putting one foot in front of the other, and not trying to focus on. I think one of the things that me and Ian clashed over was I was trying to do everything. I was like the diet, the everything. And, one of the podcasts you said, and one of the other things that we had in the coaching was, you said, I was like, we're still not on the same page. And you kind of like, you are on the same page. It's just you're a paragraph ahead of him. And actually that was that was what got me. Is that actually we do things differently. And it is understanding that the person that you're doing it with doesn't necessarily feel the need to do every single little thing. And I think for me, I think us women on the journey, we throw everything at and everything in the kitchen sink, and we try to do everything at once, and that's what causes the burnout. So it's like don't get too bogged down. I mean, for anyone who's saying, I drank all the way through lockdown. We had cocktails and everything. We would, we had online parties. I took a break. I took a proper break. And, I'd been changing my gym routines. I changed them back. I did all my gyms. I did my gym routines that I wanted. I did what made me happy. I did what made me comfortable. And I only changed it when I felt it was right for me to change it. So I toned it down when I had a transfer, and I toned it down at the right times. And I think it is just focusing on, ultimately, it's that ultimate goal. And what do you want? What are you comfortable doing in order to get it? And make that decision up front, and stick to it. And just keep the people on board who are willing to support you and your vision and what you want to do. So my mates were all behind me, and they would all be like, are we drinking tonight, or are we not drinking? And on some nights I'd be like, right, it's a no completely. And others I was like, I'm going to share a bottle with you. And others, I'm going to have one glass, I'm going to make it last a really long time. And they were like, right, okay. And they would kind of help me pace and just be there to, they're just like, and the occasions that I needed to have a rant about, about Ian and whatever we'd done, and they'd be like, in the grand scheme of things, it's probably not the end of the world, but this is really this is tickle at a day. So sometimes you just need to have the people there who are just the ones who are just willing to let you rant, but then not let you dwell on it.
I love that, Claire. And it makes me so proud to hear like the phrases, what do you want? Or, is this helping me? Is this actually a positive thing that we want to focus on? How far am I willing to go? Am I going to be that woman, and it's great because it just makes me so proud. I'm like, it definitely stuck. The coaching stuck. And I
apply it to everything. It's like, don't give me problems, give me solutions. It's like, you say it at work, say it at home. Don't give me problems, give me solutions. That's what I need.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a massive shift for a lot of people. Like, because a lot of people get stuck in the problem. And it's like, no, I don't want to hear any more about the problem. I only want to hear about solutions. And I know what I want, and I'm willing to go get it. And look at you here today, 20 weeks pregnant. You made the dream come true. You're here. And it's incredible. And you have the ability to see this from so many sides, with the rich experience that you had in this process. And, one thing that I say to my ladies like you all the time is, I hope you never forget how powerful you are, because you overcame so much to get to this place. Well done.
Yeah, well done me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's been such a pleasure to have you on, Claire. And it's such a delight to see the transformation, to see where you were when we first met, and to see you here now, 20 weeks pregnant, self-assured, relationships stronger than ever. You and Ian are going to be amazing parents. So keep me posted, woman.
I will do.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Love this episode of the Fearlessly Fertile podcast? Subscribe now and leave an awesome review. Remember, the desire in your heart to be a mom is there because it was meant for you. When it comes to your dreams, keep saying hell yes.